This book is a collection of true stories by lesbian, bisexual, queer women of different kinds. How did it get put together, and what's the title got to do with anything?
Well, it started about 1.5 years ago because we thought storytelling is the oldest form of activism in history. We have to tell stories, not just write papers and research and that sort of thing. So we started out, we couldn't find any lesbians at the time because Meme was just starting out. And then we had access to hundreds of them, and we interviewed over...
How? What changed?
Well, Meme works in a very underground sort of way that nobody really knows. It's word of mouth. The lesbian community is very well connected, so it gets out to a lot of people. There's a meeting place where they meet in the safe house, which is like a community house where they have lots of activities. The same way that it was portrayed in the video. It's really that sort of way that the message gets across, and now they have 300 strong members. So we were able to interview about 100 of them for the stories. And then we filtered down the stories, wrote them, rewrote them, talked to the person. We didn't make it submission-based because only a privileged few can actually tell their stories or write their stories. And then we collected them, we wrote a quick introduction, that's a very sort of feminist analysis of the situation. And we launched last month in the middle of Beirut, 1 week before the elections. And we had over 400 people attend the launch, and some of the stories were read.
Now, that's a significant event, given that there is still this Article 534, which has actually criminal consequences for people convicted under it. What happens? What are the penalties?
Right. Well, Article 534, it criminalizes homosexuality with 2 years in jail. There's sort of an invisible agreement in Lebanon not to use that article much, because Lebanon is scared of coming under huge UN or European sort of pressure, because we're a country that looks a lot to our international reputation. So it isn't being used as much as it was, but still it's there, it's a threat, we get blackmailed, we get abused because of this article. So now there's lots of lobby efforts that are very public and very out there to take the article down. I think symbolically it will do so much for the Arab world to be the first Arab country to decriminalize homosexuality.
How did people respond to the book? Apart from 400 people showing up, what was the reaction?
Well, the reviews in the Arabic papers were fantastic. We didn't get any TV coverage or like mainstream coverage, but the reviews have been going great. It's been selling out at bookstores. We just ordered a new print run of about 1,000 copies, so we're very excited.
And where can people get it here? We'll put a link on our website, but where else can people get it?
Well, there's the book website, GRIttv.com, and so they can order internationally and we'll ship.
I'm sure they've got that down just perfectly. No, we'll put a link at our site. Talk a bit about your relations with the outside world. A, how do you survive? Where do you get your resources?
Well, we get funding from a number of organizations, 5 or 6 of them. A few of them are based here in New York. There's the Estrella Lesbian Foundation. There's also Open Society Institute, who give us funding for the house. The book was funded by the Heinrich Böll Foundation. That's a German Green Party foundation. Also the Global Fund for Women and Mama Cash in the Netherlands.
A lot of our colleagues listed in that group. What about your relationships with other LGBT and feminist groupings throughout the Arab world? Is there much of a kind of transnational connection?
Well, we're trying. There isn't much LGBT activity in the Arab world because it's a lot harder than Lebanon. I mean, you've got death penalty in a lot of places. You've got severe gender segregation that in some ways helps people to get together, but in other ways it prevents a lot of activism. There's not much freedom of speech in a lot of countries, so in Egypt and Syria you can't really do much. But we're trying, we're working with a lot of individuals, we're working with women's organizations, try to get them to take up the issue of queer rights as well.
And in the safe house, say, when people are brought together by virtue of their sexuality and their state of being discriminated against, do the old barriers or the sort of lines that exist outside of that safe house simply fade away, or do they remain? I mean, there are tensions between Palestinian refugees in Lebanon and the Lebanese. Right. There are tensions across that region. Then the religious tensions on top of that and the class and all of the rest. Do they just magically disappear?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think we're still in the process of that. To keep it safe in the beginning, we had a rule where no religion, no politics is ever discussed in the house, which allowed for people to associate on common sexual identities. But then we thought we should confront these issues heads on, we should feel safe, we should trust each other enough to be able to talk about these influences from outside. So that's what we've been doing now. We've been writing a lot about it, researching a lot about it, interviewing each other. about all this baggage that we carry from our families and our environments. How can we have something like our social rights rise above religious or community or geographic sort of belongings? But that's a very hard question to answer.
If you do manage that, you'll come out with a great cohort of leaders with the capacity to talk to a lot of other people about how they got through that. At this moment in development, do you see inside the women's movement and the movements for peace that people who have had to fight for their own self-determination as queer people do have more courage or more likely to take leadership positions on some of these other issues?
Well, now a lot more than before, but there's been people who fought for it so hard for the past 20, 30 years because sexuality baiting is a very common form of discrediting queer people. So if you're a lesbian, what do you know about feminism? What do you know about other women's issues? What do you know about peace? What do you know about politics? What do you know about all these things? Or forms of saying that, you know, you're not a good woman, you're a bad woman anyway, so your politics don't matter. But I think some people have been doing amazing work over the past 20, 30 years here in the United States to sort of open spaces like the UN, open international networks for queer people to be respected and to have a voice in these discussions.
All right, Nadine Mawad, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us information about this new book. We'll put information at our website and about MEME and some of the organizations that I guess we could learn from in Lebanon. Thanks so much. We've got more coming up right here at GRIttv. Don't go away.